We're about to see one of the greatest races of the summer. It is Whitney weekend. 10 horses are vying for a $1 million purse and a win, and you're in to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, these horses are ready to throw it down at one of America's most unpredictable racetracks, one of my favorites, Saratoga. We're going to see everything in this race. Speed, closers, graded stakes winners, to none at all. And I have all of your past performances and 5 angles based on 30 years of data. How are you going to find your winner? Facts and figures will help you find that winning edge. I give you the stats, you make the picks. Hi, it's Maura from Trifecta and a little bit extra. And we're going to go through all 10 contenders and those 5 angles. But first, I do want to remind you this. Horse betting is not legal in every state. So if you're betting, just make sure it's legal. Now, last week I had a little something going on in my video on the Jim Dandy. I said, drop me a comment, any comment, and I will pick a name from random to highlight you on today's show. So I have put all the names in one of my favorite hats, my Justify hat, and you can see all the names in here, and I'm going to draw a person and shout them out. So drum roll, please. Congratulations. Oh my goodness. Shout out again. Mike, LXATP. Mike has been getting shouted out over like 3 other videos. So congrats, Mike, to you. And just to be fair, because you've gotten so many shout outs, let me just draw one more name. And that name will be, thank you to this viewer, Tote Pocket. I think Tote Pocket's been shouted out as well. Thank you guys for always coming back and watching and participating and commenting. You know I love the comments, so let's do it again. Drop me a comment this week, and here's what I want you to tell me. Who do you like in the Whitney? It doesn't have to be who you think is going to win. Maybe it's just who are you interested in seeing running? Because I know you are fans of this sport, and some of these horses you have been following for more than a few years. So let's get started with the Whitney and 5 angles based on 30 years of data. 30 years of data is what I looked at, and I found 5 handicapping angles for us to use. Now, I will say this, 4 of them are what you typically would use in any race. It just happens to be that they fit this race so nicely. And we're going to start with form. Form is king. And what I mean by that is, did they have a win or a place in their last race? When I look back 30 years, 20 had a win in their prior race, and 8 had a place in their prep race. That is 28 out of 30. That is 93%. That means only 2 of the winners of the Whitney did not have that. But here's something so interesting. Out of those 2, 1 was White Abarrio in 2023. And guess what? White Abarrio is in this race. He's the number 7 horse. In 2023, he finished 3rd in the Metropolitan Handicap. That's the race he used as a prep race. And then he went on to win the Whitney. And guess what? This year, he used the Metropolitan Handicap again as his prep race and finished 4th. Are we going to see him defy that angle again? If form is king, well then class is his queen. What we see out of the last 30 years, 26, 87%, had a graded stakes win. And of the 4 that didn't, 1 was last year's winner, Arthur's Ride. Having a win at this distance or longer is also key. 25, 83% had a win at this distance or longer. And we only have 1 horse in today's race that doesn't fit this angle, the number 8, Contrary Thinking. Oh, and you know what else is a bonus? A graded stakes win at this distance or longer. Next up is speed, speed, speed. And when I say speed, I mean early speed, 1.5 lengths from the leader at the half pole. Now that is very tight. And what I'm seeing there, 20 out of the 30, 67% were within 1.5 lengths from the leader at the half pole, and 11 of the 30 were the actual leaders of the race at the half pole. Now, here's your fifth angle. Take it or leave it for what it is. It may just be an interesting fact, or it may be something you want to use. This is your choice because it is kind of interesting. When I looked out of the 30 winners, 23 were 4-year-olds, not 5-year-olds, not 6-year-olds, but 4-year-olds. And what that could mean is that they are maturing both physically and mentally and are yet on the decline, and that gives them a winning edge. 2 other things I want to note. Todd Pletcher is a key trainer, and he has 2 horses in this race, Mindframe and Fierceness. Todd Pletcher has won 4 of the last 30 editions of the Whitney. And favorites have only won in 11 of the 30 pass runnings of the Whitney. Now, I do want to remind you, these are just metrics and stats to help you evaluate the horses. You really need to look at these angles in relation to the past performances. I did go back to last year to say, can we use these to find Arthur's ride? When you look at all the contenders in last year's Whitney, National Treasure would have stood out. 5 of the 5 angles. Of course, you would have had him on top. But if you had said, hey, he's a lock and I'm just going to use him, you would have been wrong. There were 3 other horses with 4 of the 5 angles. First, Bright Future had it all, didn't have the age component. Now, do you really want to use age? That's up to you. But this horse didn't have the 4-year-old age component. You would have had Croupy in there, but Croupy would have been too far back. And then you would have had Arthur's ride. Everything but the graded stakes win. But when you looked at his past performances, you would have seen he won by 12 lengths in his last race, and you may have included him. So this is why we're going to look at horse by horse and the past performances and the angles all put together. If you're like, I don't want to look at horse by horse, I only want to look at the horses I'm most interested in, that's okay. I have timestamps below. Just slide to the horse you're most interested in. Also, if this is a little bit long for you and you want to take me with you on your daily activities, you can do that now. I have created a podcast here just for the Saratoga races. Find me on YouTube Music. Now on to each contender. We're going to begin with the number 1 horse, Mindframe, Todd Pletcher's Mindframe. And that's important. Todd Pletcher has won 40 of the Whitneys in the last 30 years. He'll be ridden by Jose Gomez. Now, this horse has 7 starts with 5 wins. Yes, I said it, 5 wins and 2 places. That means he's always been in the exacta. And here's a little fun fact. There's only 1 horse that's ever beaten Mindframe, and that's Dornick. Dornick, last year's Belmont winner, who is now retired. Out of those 7 starts, 5 are graded stakes with 3 wins and 2 places. And that means right off the bat, he has the graded stakes win angle. His last race was the G1 Stephen Foster, this distance at Churchill Downs. And guess what? He won that race. That means he's got the form angle and he's got the win at the distance angle. Now, in that race, he was the 9-5 favorite. He comes out of the gate. He gets up to the lead pack. Now, he is stalking in 2nd position all the way around the backstretch. And when they make the turn, he makes his move and wins with a 105 buyer. And that would put him in the mix here. I want to tell you a little bit more about Mindframe and his career because it's pretty impressive. He starts his career as a 3-year-old, and his 3rd race is the Belmont Stakes, a 1.25 miles distance here at Saratoga. Now, he was so green that day, but somehow he was able to come in 2nd to Dornick with a 101 buyer, a triple-digit buyer. Next up is the Haskell. And again, he backs up that buyer. Comes in 2nd to Dornick, but a 101 buyer. Then he needs to take off time due to bone bruising. He enters back in as a 4-year-old going into the Gulfstream Park Mile. Now in that race, very patient, gets up to that stalking position, and when it's time, he makes a move, he wins by a length and a quarter and earns a 96 buyer. Next stop, Kentucky Derby Day. It's the Churchill Downs Stakes going 7 furlongs. Very sloppy day that day. And in that race again, stalking the leader, makes a move, wins by a neck, 99 buyer, and he won against grade 1 level horses. Then came his win in the grade 1 Stephen Foster. What about the early speed angle? Remember, we're looking for a length and a half from the leader at the half pole. Well, Mindframe, he did show that in the Stephen Foster, but not his other races. He always got in that stalking position, but he was within 2 to 3 to 4 lengths from the leader. But I want to point this out to you. We have this angle, and it says 20 of the 30 were within a length and a half of the leader at the half pole. But that also means 10 times. 10 times they weren't. And 6 of those 10, they were like where Mindframe would be, 2.5 to 3.5 lengths from the leader. And I also want to point this out. It looks like this is going to be a fast-paced race. We're going to have Mama's Gold, Skippylongstocking, Fierceness, and White Abarrio all going up to the lead. So you evaluate how you want to use this angle. This is a very talented 4-year-old with a lot of potential hitting a lot of these angles. But before we get excited, because he's got 4 out of the 5, I do want to point out Pletcher has said this. He's not really sure he's going to run Mindframe on Saturday. It all depends on if Fierceness stays in the race. So, unfortunately, we may see a scratch with Mindframe. The number 2 horse is Skippylongstocking. He's trained by Saffie Joseph Jr. and will be ridden by Jose Ortiz. Now, this 6-year-old is the most experienced horse in the field. 32 starts, 11 wins, 3 places, and 7 shows. Out of his 32 starts, 23 graded stakes entries, and he won 9. So, out of the gate, he's got the graded stakes win angle. But I want to put this into perspective. He has entered 10 G1 races and hasn't won any of those. And the Whitney is a G1 race. Looking back in a few of those, he came in 3rd in the Pegasus Cup Stakes in January, 6th in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile in November, 5th in last year's Whitney, and 3rd in the Stephen Foster last year. Let's talk about his last race in May, the G2 Hollywood Gold Cup, going 1 mile and 1/4 at Santa Anita. Now, he was the favorite that day. He comes out, he gets up close to the lead. He goes wide around that first turn. Now, going around the final turn, he is dueling with another horse, but he takes charge, wins with a 98 buyer. So he's got the form angle of a win in his last race, and he's got the distance angle because that was 1.25 miles. Prior to that race, he was in the G2 Oaklawn Handicap. This distance comes in 3rd, 7 lengths behind, with a 97 buyer. His top buyer overall in his career is a 107 in last year's G2 Oaklawn Handicap. His top buyer this year was 104 in Tampa at the Michelob Ultra Challenge Stakes. But in that race, there were only 3 other horses. And who did he really beat that day? 2 went into optional claimers after that race. How did he do in last year's Whitney? At age 5, he enters the Whitney. He gets up really close to the lead, but unfortunately, he weakens, comes in 5th with a 97 buyer. So what about that final angle, running style? Well, sometimes he has it and sometimes he doesn't. If you look at last year's Whitney, he was 1.5 lengths from the leader at the half pole, but in other races, 2.5 to 3.5 lengths. So he has like 3 to 4 of the angles depending on how you're going to look at running style. But I'll tell you what really concerns me about Skippylongstocking. One, he weakened in last year's Whitney, and that was as a 5-year-old, and now he's 6. Two, he hasn't won a G1 race yet. And 3, his top buyer is a 104, but that only came against 3 other horses this year, and they weren't the likes of Sierra Leone and Fierceness. So very talented horse. I'm just afraid he's not going to be able to close the deal in this race. The number 3 horse is Highland Falls. Trained by Brad Cox, he'll be ridden by Luis Saez. 11 starts with 6 wins, 2 places, and 1 show. The only 2 times he didn't hit the board was when he went to California. So maybe he just doesn't like traveling out west. Now, out of those 11 starts, 6 were graded stakes with 2 wins and 2 places. So immediately we know he has the graded stakes form because he has a graded stakes win. One was the G3 Blame Stakes, this distance at Churchill Downs. And the other was the G1 Jockey Club Gold Cup. And that was 1.25 miles at Saratoga. So he also gets the angle a win at this distance. And that race, the G1 Jockey Club Gold Cup, that's the race that catches my eye in the race we want to dig into. He was 7-1 that day. Out of the gate, he goes right to the lead with who? Arthur's Ride, last year's Whitney's winner. They get into a duel. Going around the turn, he sticks a nose out front. He's able to clear Arthur's Ride and win by 4 lengths with a 104 buyer. Who else did he beat that day? He beat Bright Future and Tappett's Trice. Quality horses. From that race, he goes to the Breeders' Cup Classic, 1.25 miles distance at Del Mar. Now he's meeting up with 2 horses that are in today's race, Fierceness and Sierra Leone. Gates open. He rushes up to get to that lead pack. Now he's in 6, but he's trying to stay with that lead pack. They are going blazing hot, 22 and change, under 45. Unfortunately, he cannot keep up with that pace. He weakens. He finishes 9th with a 94 buyer. He gets 237 days of rest. Then he begins his 5-year-old campaign. Only 1 race, a mile, $92,000 allowance race, Belmont at Aqueduct. He's the 1-5 favorite, and there was a reason why. He wins by a whopping 5 lengths after stalking the leader, and he earns a 98 buyer. Consider that one a tune-up, but he does get the angle for form, having a win in his last race. Does he have the angle for tactical speed? Well, absolutely. He's great at stalking the leaders. But I do want to caution you, this is going to be a fast-paced race. And given the pace projection, he may be further off of the leaders than he's used to. But he is clicking off some of the main angles. So a very interesting horse. But just remember too, if you're using the age as an angle, he is a 5-year-old. Now, before we go on to the next contender, if you're finding this information useful, hit like and hit subscribe. I'm doing 1 race a week for Saratoga and then on to the Derby prep races. Never miss out on my horse racing coverage. The number 4 horse is Mama's Gold. Trained by James Ferraro, he'll be ridden by Romero Mirage. 23 starts, and Mirage has been on him 14 times. 6 wins, 4 places. However, in all 23 starts, not a graded stakes entry. So he can't have a graded stakes win, doesn't get that angle. The angle he does get is form. We did see him come in second in his last race, the Commentator Stakes. This distance and this track in June. Gates open and he comes out of post position 1. He gets right up to the lead. He has a 3-length lead over Bank Frenzy. Now they begin to duel around the turn. Bank Frenzy, he puts a head out in front, but Mama's Gold says, oh, no, 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 and comes and fights back, showing his heart. But in the end, Bank Frenzy gets the best of him, and Mama's Gold comes in second with a 95 buyer. The other angle Mama's Gold has is a win at this distance. Now I want to park on this distance for a bit because Mama's Gold is a 1.125 expert. This horse has 8 starts going a 1.125 with 4 wins and 3 places, and that means 7 times in the exacta. His best buyer is a 103, and that came at the 1.125 distance. Now I'm going to tell you something that's probably going to blow your mind. Sierra Leone, our Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Whenever he's gone a 1.125, his best buyer is a 104. Want to know why Mama's Gold is taking a chance in the Whitney? That says it all. He transferred over to James Ferraro's barn in September, and since then, he's earned some of his best buyers, a 103 and a 102. The 103 came in the Empire Classic Stakes race. Again, this distance at Belmont at Aqueduct. In that race, gate to wire, wins by 4, earning that 103 buyer. And who did he beat that day? Bank Frenzy, who just turned the tables on him in the Commentator Stakes race. Then he did it again. He goes into an allowance optional claiming race. This distance, gate to wire, wins by 4, 102 buyer. Since then, his races have been hit or miss, coming in 5th, then 2nd, 7th, and then 2nd again in the Commentator Stakes. Does he have early speed? Absolutely. This horse is going right to the lead, but he's going to have some company on that lead. And this is deeper waters here with the likes of Sierra Leone and Fierceness. Hits 3 of the angles, is missing that graded stakes win, and also is a 5-year-old. But what he does have going for him is the fact he loves this distance and he's got that Saratoga experience. The number 5 horse is Sierra Leone. Trained by Chad Brown, he'll be ridden by Flavian Pratt. 11 starts, 4 wins, 4 places, 3 shows. You want class? This horse, all class. All but 1 start was in a graded stakes race, and he has the graded stakes win angle. Looking at his 3-year-old career, he won the G2 Risen Star. He won the G1 Bluegrass. And oh, by the way, he finished his 3-year-old career winning the race of all races, the Breeders' Cup Classic, a 1.25 miles at Del Mar. So he also gets the win at this distance or longer angle. His superpower is his late speed. Now this horse just sits in the back, and when it's time, bam, he just revs it up. And that's what we saw in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now that pace was super hot, 22 and change, under 45. He came around that turn and he was gaining momentum. He dueled Fierceness, who is in this race, and he wins with a 112 buyer. Yes, I said it, 112. That's his best buyer and the top buyer out of all of the horses in this year's Whitney. You want to talk about speed and power? This horse has speed and power. His last 5 races, triple-digit buyers. Yes, triple-digit buyers for 5 races in a row. How about form? Well, he came in 2nd in his last race, the G1 Stephen Foster, so he's got that angle. Now, he was way in the back, like 6 lengths off the leader, but around that far turn, man, he just turned it on. He had to go wide. He was gaining momentum down the stretch, but he just didn't have what it took to get up to Mindframe. Came in 2nd, so the only angle he doesn't have is that early tactical speed. He tends to be 4 to 5 lengths off the leader at the half pole. Does he need a fast-paced race to run into? No, we've seen him do really well in moderate pace races, but remember, pace projection says that this race may have a hot pace, so it may set up well for him. Now with his speed, his power, his class, the form, and oh, by the way, $6.2 million in earnings, this 4-year-old may be hitting his peak, and I would not overlook him just because of his running style. But there are a couple things I want to point out to you. He's been to Saratoga 3 times, and twice he met up with Fierceness, and twice Fierceness got the better of him, and Fierceness is in this race. And then the other thing, his 2 best buyers of a 109 and 112 did not come at the 1.125 miles. It came at a longer distance. The number 6 horse is Disarm. Trained by Steve Asmussen, he'll be ridden by Joel Rosario. 16 starts, 4 wins, 3 places, and 3 shows. Of the 16 starts, 11 were graded stakes with 1 win, 2 places, and 2 shows. Although Disarm has a graded stakes win, it was as a 3-year-old, so 2 years ago, in the G3 Mat win. This distance at Churchill Downs, it was a sloppy track that day. Now, he doesn't do poorly in graded stakes races, but his best races were as a 3-year-old. There were 4 races in the spring and summer where he was registering triple-digit buyers. He came in 4th in the Kentucky Derby. He came in 1st in the Mat win. He was in the Jim Dandy and came in 2nd in the Travers. But I also want to point this out. Even though he's registering these triple-digit buyers, outside of the Kentucky Derby, those 3 other races, with 2 being at Saratoga, they were all sloppy or muddy tracks. In his 4-year-old campaign, he's in the G1 Stephen Foster, 6th with an 89 buyer. Comes to last year's Whitney here at Saratoga, sloppy surface, finishes 4th with a 99 buyer, but then goes into the G1 Jockey Club Gold Cup Stakes, going 1.25 miles here at Saratoga. Fast surface, comes in 3rd with a 95 buyer. Finally ends up in the G2 Lucas Classic, this distance at Churchill Downs. Sloppy surface, comes in 4th with a 94 buyer. He's never been able to get back to those triple-digit buyers. So he has class with a graded stakes win. He's also got a win at this distance or longer, but does he have form? No. In the G2 Oaklawn Handicap, his last race, the pace was swift, but he was only able to finish 4th with a 96 buyer, and Skippylongstocking, who's in this race, was able to get ahead of him and finish 3rd. Does he have early speed? No. He tends to be further back, so he does not get that angle. Now, it looks like he did his best running as a 3-year-old. That's when he was registering those triple-digit buyers. He doesn't have the early speed, and he's a 5-year-old, so he's not hitting some of the angles. But before you toss him out entirely, I want you to go look at his workouts. He has 4 recent workouts at Saratoga that are bullet workouts. He may not make your handicapping lens as a winner of this race, but I would look at him and to see, do you think he could be a board hitter? Moving on to the number 7 horse, White Abarrio. Trained by Safi Joseph Jr., he'll be ridden by Irad Ortiz Jr., one of the leading riders at Saratoga. This is a very talented 6-year-old. 22 starts, 10 wins, 2 places, and 3 shows. $7 million in earning, and that's the top in this field. Now, out of those 22 starts, 18 were graded stakes races, and out of his 10 wins, 4 were G1 and 2 were G3. And so that means he has the class angle. Also has the distance angle. He's tried this distance 8 times with 3 wins, and he's also won 1.25 miles at the Breeders' Cup Classic, the premier race, where he won with a 106 buyer. But that's not the race I want to talk about. I want to talk about the race that got him into the Breeders' Cup Classic in his 4-year-old campaign. And that is this race, the G1 Whitney. He won this race when he was a 4-year-old. Now, he was up against quality horses like Zandon and Cody's Wish. He came out of post position 5. He gets near the lead. He's stalking the leader. Around the turn, puts a nose in front, and boom, he just lays it down, winning by 6 lengths with a 110 buyer. And looking at this field, that is the best buyer for 1.125 miles. him and Fierceness are tied. And he has continued that winning form as a 6-year-old. We see when he went to the Pegasus Cup in January, this distance at Gulfstream, he won again by 6 lengths with a 109 buyer. So he has the class, he has the distance ankle, he has speed overall with those really strong buyers, but does he have early tactical speed? Well, yes and no. Sometimes he's a length and a half to the leader at the half pole, but sometimes he's a little bit further back. But looking at the pace projection, it looks like he is going to be part of that lead pack. Well, what about form? No, he does not have a winner place in his last race. His last race was the G1 Metropolitan Handicap, a mile at this track. And if you remember, it was a very sloppy day that day. He came up against Fierceness. He gets bumped from both sides and then just lacked response. Finishes 4th with a 97 buyer. But I do want to remind you with this form angle, only 2 horses in the last 30 runnings of the Whitney won the Whitney and didn't win or place in their prep race. And one of those horses, White Abarrio, a few years ago. And what was his prep race? The G1 Metropolitan Handicap. Now, I just want to remind you before we go to the next runner, make sure you comment. Tell me, who do you like in this race, or who you just can't wait to watch run and why. I'm going to draw one name out of a hat and feature you on my next video. The number 8 horse is Chad Brown's Contrary Thinking, and I'm doing a little contrary thinking myself, like, why is this horse in the race? Now, he's going to be ridden by Dylan Davis. He's a 5-year-old with 5 starts and 2 wins. But here's the kicker. No graded stakes entries, no entries at a distance at least 1 1/8 or longer. In fact, the only long distance race he's been in was a mile race, and that was his last race. In that race, he got out of the gate, he went right to the lead, he wins by 3 with a 95 buyer. So he does have the form angle. If you look at tactical speed, however, yes, he was very forwardly placed in that race, but his prior races, he was much further back at the half pole, 2 to 6 to 7 lengths from the leader at the half pole. So really, he is only hitting one angle. Now, I've read on some forums, he may be a rabbit for Sierra Leone. But does Sierra Leone really need a rabbit in this race? I mean, it is setting up to be a fast-paced race. The only thing I will caution is, haven't we always overlooked the other Chad Brown? And the other Chad Brown is the one that wins? I wouldn't overlook him because it tends to happen to me when I do overlook a Chad Brown horse. But honestly, just wondering, contrary thinking, wondering, what is he doing in this race? The number 9 horse is Fierceness. Trained by Todd Pletcher, he'll be ridden by Johnny Velasquez. 11 starts, 6 wins, 2 places, and 1 show. Now, you want a horse that has all the angles? This horse has all the angles. He's fierce. Now, 10 of his 11 starts were in graded stakes races. When he was a 2-year-old, he dazzled all of us in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at Santa Anita. And in that race, he won by a whopping 6 lengths and threw down a 105 buyer as a 2-year-old. But don't forget where he started his 2-year-old career. Here at Saratoga, on a sloppy track, he won by a staggering 11 lengths. As a 3-year-old, he was hot or he was not. He was consistently inconsistent until the summer. In the G1 Florida Derby, this distance at Gulfstream, he won by a whopping 13 lengths with 110 buyer. And that is the highest for this distance, tied with White Abarrio. But then he goes into the Kentucky Derby and he just flops as the favorite, coming in 15th with a 67 buyer. Ouch. But then it's summer, and like many of us, he goes to Saratoga and nothing but blue skies. I mean, always at Saratoga, nothing but blue skies. He wins the Jim Dandy this distance over Sierra Leone and gets a 103 buyer. And then he goes to the Travers, a 1.25 miles, and he wins over fan favorite filly Torpedo Anna and wins with a 111 buyer. Then comes the Breeders' Cup Classic at Del Mar. Now, if you remember, that was a blazing hot pace race, 22 and change, under 55, and Fierceness is up with the leaders the entire time, and that in itself was super impressive. But that race really set up nicely for Sierra Leone and that big momentum power he has. Fierceness comes in second. Sierra Leone turns the tables, but Fierceness backs up his 111 buyer. Then he begins his 4-year-old campaign. Kentucky Oaks Day, a 1.16 miles at Churchill Downs in the Alley Sheba, wins with a 107 buyer. Then he comes here Belmont weekend. He's entered into the G1 Metropolitan Handicap going a mile. And remember, it was a sloppy, muddy track that day. Well, he takes on the track coming out of post position 1. He got bumped, but he got up to the leader, and he's with the leader just stalking him. He battles Raging Torrent around the track. He just can't close the deal that day. He comes in second with a 102 buyer. He's got all the angles. He's got Todd Pletcher. He's had 2 tries at this distance, 2 wins with the highest buyer tied with White Abarrio. And oh boy, does this horse love Saratoga. How do you look past Fierceness? Now, I will say this, though, he is the fave, and the favorites have only won 11 of the 30 editions of the Whitney. Is Fierceness going to find his way to the winner's circle on Saturday? It's post time. The number 10 horse is Post Time. Trained by Brittany Russell, he'll be ridden by Sheldon Russell. Now, Sheldon's been on him for all but 3 starts. This is an experienced 5-year-old. 18 starts, 11 wins, 3 places, and 4 shows. And if you add that up, that means Post Time has always been in the trifecta. Now, 8 of the 18 starts, graded stakes races with 2 wins. That means he has the class angle. But the best he's been able to do in a G1 race are 2 places and 1 show. Now, Post Time was in the Whitney as a 4-year-old last year. How did he do? Well, remember, it was a 1.8 miles on a sloppy track here at Saratoga, and he came in 3rd behind Arthur's Ride and Crouppy with a 105 buyer. Now, that was his best buyer yet, but it was on a muddy track. Does he have a win in a graded stakes race? Yes, he has 2, but they were both as a 4-year-old and both going 7 furlongs. Does he have a win at this distance? Yes, he's tried this distance 3 times and has won once. It just wasn't a graded stakes race. That race was his last race, so he's got the form angle. That race was at Laurel. He was the 1-5 favorite. Comes out of the gate slow. He is second to last in the back. What a paceless race that was. First quarter, 25 seconds. First half, 51 seconds. They are crawling. Now down the stretch, he split foes, wins with a 94 buyer. So he has the graded stakes angle, has the distance angle, has the form angle, although that wasn't a very strong race. Does he have tactical speed? No, he tends to be further in the back. Now, very talented horse. You don't win 11 times and not be a talented horse. But he's going to have to really step up his game, especially because his best buyer was on a muddy track. in order to compete with the likes of Fierceness and Sierra Leone. So let's just recap who has the most angles. Well, Fierceness has all 5. Then there's Mindframe. Mindframe has like 4.5. Remember, he was up close, had that tactical speed that we're looking for in the Stephen Foster, but was a smidge far back in his other races. And we just don't know if he's going to be entered in on Saturday. The other horses I would look at who have 4 angles, Sierra Leone. The only angle he's missing is he's going to be further back than what we'd like to look at for tactical speed. But remember, it's going to be a fast-paced race. And then there's Highland Falls. The only angle he's missing is age. He's a 5-year-old. You know what time it is. Now it's your turn. Drop me a comment below. Tell me who you like for Saturday or who you just can't wait to watch run and why. I'm going to draw another name out of the hat and feature you on my next video. Hit like, hit subscribe. I'm here for the summer. 1 race a week for Saratoga and then back to the Derby preps. I hope you all find that winner on Saturday. Cheers.